Zach Wilson exploded onto the college football scene in 2020 and took everyone by surprise. A year ago now, people knew who he was and knew he was entering his junior year at BYU, but no one saw the type of season he would go on to have. He finished his 2020 season with an incredible 33-3 touchdown interception ratio and will be the number 2 overall pick in the draft in a few short days, be a New York Jet. But for as impressive as Zach Wilson was this past year, and for as much as he flew up the board, I do have some serious questions about his game, and I do think he is the ultimate boom or bust prospect. 3 years from now, we could be sitting here praising them for how smart Joe Douglas and the Jets were for taking Wilson at 2, or we could be sitting here and asking what went wrong and why Zach Wilson didn't work out. 3 years ago, there were 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round, and there will be 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round this year, if not 6. I think there's only going to be 5, but there has been rumors the past few days of 6. For Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, there were Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold, and while Sam isn't anywhere as close to as bad as Rosen is, he hasn't exactly worked out and is already on to his second team. For today's video though, we're going to discuss Zach Wilson and why he is the ultimate boom or bust quarterback and whether or not we think he will work out. But before we get started, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as each only take a second to do and it makes a massive difference. Now let's begin. Let's start with the positives for Zach Wilson, as we are going to discuss several things that concern me in today's video, and I don't want this to be just 10 straight minutes of me ripping him apart and questioning whether he has it or not. Zach's arm talent is off the charts, and it shows up on tape, as there are plenty of times where he makes throws, and at times it is truly fun to watch. In some ways, he does resemble Patrick Mahomes, I can't lie. That's not to say that he will have the success he does, because that is lofty for any prospect, let alone Zach Wilson. Having those expectations for any prospect to have 2 Super Bowl appearances in 3 years of starting, a regular season MVP, and a Super Bowl MVP is setting anybody up for failure. Wilson can truly sling the rock, but like we've seen at times in the NFL with Mahomes, that can very easily be a double-edged sword as much as it helps him. And if we're being honest here, there were plenty of times in 2020 when Patrick Mahomes was in trouble and threw balls that should have been intercepted that simply were not. And according to QB Data Mine on Twitter, Patrick was the luckiest QB in the NFL in 2020 in terms of interceptions. He had 25 interceptable passes with only 6 being caught. Granted, 2 weren't his fault, but 25 over the course of a season is incredibly lucky, and for a player like Wilson who sometimes does sling the ball around the yard the way Mahomes does, I wouldn't expect him to be so lucky in year 1. And unfortunately for Wilson, he will be going to a team with less talent everywhere on offense, and his decision making is going to have to be sped up immensely. So the likelihood of him throwing at least quote-unquote 25 interceptable passes in year 1 is a lot higher than Zach Wilson fans would probably like to admit. He had an incredible 33-3 TD to INT ratio in 2020, but what must be said, and I will reiterate this, is but they played against teams like Texas State, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, Troy, and Navy. I will also reiterate this, as I genuinely want the best for Zach Wilson, and I do want him to succeed, but the difference in the speed of the game and the speed at the rate he makes decisions seriously concerns me at the NFL level. Coastal Carolina, or CCU as we call it on the East Coast, maybe you guys call it that in the Midwest and the West Coast, I don't know. Anyway, CCU was the best team they played all year, and it is safe to say Wilson didn't play his best during that game. He wasn't awful to the point where scouts are concerned and he's falling down draft boards. I mean, come on, he's going number 2 overall. But to me, when I watched this film, there were a lot of concerns I had after watching this tape. When we dive into this, here's what I want to look at. There's a few plays specifically that do concern me, and again, as we said, we're not ripping them for 10 straight minutes, so I will also show good plays and good things from this game, but we're going to start with the negatives from film from this game against CCU. Now, this first play we're going to discuss, and I'll fill you in with the situation for every play that we do. This was a 3rd and 8 on their own 11, and as you'll see in the video, Zach is well past the sticks when he decides to truck a defender, and I don't have a problem with the occasional lowering the shoulder or anything like that. I do have a problem with barreling into a guy's chest, crown of the helmet leading first. And to be clear, this wasn't a consistent thing in Wilson's film, and it isn't something the Jets have to worry about, as him in a Week 16 game or wildcard playoff game is him leading with the crown of the helmet into Darius Leonard because, well, simply put, we wouldn't see very much of Zach Wilson's career. I thought this play specifically was very poor situational awareness, because Zach had to have known, or at least you'd like to think he would have known, he had already more than picked up the first down at that point in time, and could have taken an easy slide or made it very clear to everyone he was going to give himself up. Conversely, to play devil's advocate here, I guess you could look at it like, man, this is a guy willing to risk it all for his team and to win any game, as this was an undefeated team at this point in time. I could understand that point, but anyways, on to the next play. The next play, same game, was a 1st and 10, and to be fair to Zach, his left guard completely whiffs, and the pressure is getting back to him almost immediately, so this is where Zach has to improvise and be a playmaker. Credit to him for getting out of the first sack attempt, as again, that can be viewed as a positive, but after that, you'd like to see Wilson throw it away, as at this point, there is next to nothing positive that's going to happen with this play. This isn't Madden where you just hit B or circle, hit aggressive catch, and come down with it. You can see how fast the speed of the game is even at the Division I level compared to the NFL, and to me, Wilson panics and does a little Johnny Manziel flick to his running back, which resulted in an incomplete pass. At that point, let's say the running back catches the ball. He's picking up at most a yard or two, and as you guys saw, the ball nearly resulted in an interception. And the reason for bringing this play specifically up is because Wilson will have to face pressure in the NFL, and opposing defensive coordinators are not going to say, "Here, Zach, here, buddy, no blitz, just a 3-man rush every play so you can have time." Imagine trying to convince Bill Belichick to do that for the 2 times they'll play this year. That's not going to happen. So I don't want to say he'll have to get comfortable under pressure, but at least manage it better than he did on this play. To me, after he broke the initial sack, which again was a good play by Wilson and a good athletic play, he looked like a deer in headlights and didn't know what to do or where to go. And again, I do want to credit Zach for after initially breaking it, he did have his head up for a brief second to see what was downfield, so that can be viewed as a slight positive from this otherwise negative play. Now, this next play we're going to shows how incredible Zach's arm talent is, as I don't want to just crap on the guy's game for 10 minutes. This play right here is late in the 4th quarter with BYU needing a play, and quite frankly, I'm not looking at the result of the play, though for BYU's sake, it did end up with a roughly 30-yard gain. Instead, we're looking at how clean of a throw this is with as much power as it had, and for Zach, granted, he did take a step into it. It wasn't a 3 or 4 step leading into a 65 to 70-yard Hail Mary. This was a really good strong throw from a yard or two deep in the end zone, with the game at that point nearly on the line. His arm strength has never been in question, and I am not sitting here asking or contemplating whether or not he's the next Kellen Moore or another weak-armed quarterback, because, well, that isn't the case, and this clip here shows it. Zach effortlessly throws the ball over 45 yards through the air, and again, you have to account for where he is on the field, because this isn't a straight line throw, so just because he's throwing from the end zone, or a yard or two deep for that matter, to the 41 or 42 yard line, does not mean it's 42 yards. I love Zach Wilson's arm strength, I just question his ability to process defenses at the speed it requires at the NFL level. The next play is the last one we're going to discuss, but here is the situation. As you see right away, it's a trick play, but the situation was 4th and 1 in the 2nd quarter with BYU being up 7-6 at this point in time. There were 10 minutes left in the 2nd quarter to be clear, so this wasn't a 30 seconds left, screw it, whatever happens, happens type play. Granted, this decision was ballsy to go for it near midfield, but the decision Zach makes is the complete wrong decision, as he goes for it all when, as you can see, there's a receiver clearly open underneath. This wasn't a 4th and 25 play, again, to be clear, it was just a simple 4th and 1. And the worst part is the ball was incomplete. Granted, this is where I give Zach credit, is the ball was where it needed to be. He did everything he could to make this play happen. His receiver just did not make the play. I do give credit to Zach for putting the ball where it needs to be, and this is not where I fault him, to be clear. I fault him for taking the hard route to get what should be the easy play, as the play was very clearly right in front of him, and this is the type of decision making that's going to have to change at the next level. And what's good about this for Wilson supporters and for Zach himself is this is extremely coachable, and truth be told, I'd be surprised if he wasn't kicking himself in the rear end either immediately after or the next week in the film room, as this was a painful play to watch given the decision he ultimately could have and should have made. And for times like this is where he gets compared to Mahomes, because he tries to make the big play, and Pat a lot of the time tries to make the big play as well, when a lot of the time the play is right in front of them underneath for the easy decision. Now, as we wrap this up and discuss the future of Zach Wilson and the Jets, there are a few things that concern me. The term contract year is used for guys that are entering the final year of their deal and they play way up for what they're worth and they get a huge contract the following year. Could 2020 in a sense have been a contract year for Wilson? Prior to 2020, he was nowhere near the player he showed, as prior to this year, he had 23 career touchdowns, 12 interceptions on 10% less completion percentage. Will Zach be able to keep this level of play up in terms of his ability, not in terms of numbers, to be clear, because a 33-3 season won't happen in his NFL career, and that's not criticism, it's unfortunately just reality. But I do wonder if Wilson can keep this up, or if he will be associated with the Mark Sanchez's and Geno Smiths of the Jets franchise. Admittedly, I'm not big on Zach Wilson, and I firmly believe Justin Fields is going to be a better player than Wilson at the NFL level. Wilson going from BYU to the Jets is a big change mentally as well that is not being talked about. Going from Provo, Utah to New York City is a big enough change for a person, let alone having to do a job only 32 people in the world have the opportunity to do. I have serious concerns regarding Zach Wilson, and I don't want to say he's going to be a flat-out draft bust, but if I were Joe Douglas, I would not feel comfortable putting my job on the line for Zach Wilson. Now, a final thought, and what I leave you with is this. I want Zach and everyone else for that matter in this draft class to succeed. Just because I don't think Wilson isn't going to be a great NFL quarterback does not mean I'll watch Jets games this fall or even in the future and root for him to fail, because that's not the case with Wilson or with anybody else for that matter. I'm not going to sit on my couch, see him throw an interception and think, yes, those YouTube guys, they can't get me now. That is not the case. I want everyone to succeed, and I just want that to be clear. Lastly, I only included clips from the CCU game today because that was the best team they faced all year, and I honestly didn't want to show any clips of him destroying Troy or Texas San Antonio because the level of difference in this game is astronomical. Now, with all of that being addressed, that is all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world, and I will see you guys next time. Until then, have a great day. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.